Hey guys, so let's take a look at the recent historic event that happened, and I want to preface this video by saying I understand the need for security, for national security in some ways, but I don't think it's an excuse to impose backdoors on users. And I want to talk a little bit about the total incompetence, which is the real reason this event occurred. We know that this individual was seen wandering around with sniper gear, including a viewfinder, for over 90 minutes, cited and reported. And we also know that the Secret Service didn't put a counter sniper on the roof, and the reasoning was because they said it was a sloped roof. But why was it that the police were able to put a counter sniper on an identical sloped roof? And you see 70 to 80-year-old men wandering around that very same roof during the investigation, and they don't seem to be having any trouble. We can't blame this on encryption, as they're trying to do, and they're taking full advantage of this opportunity to testify the need to break encryption. So we've seen the Secret Service take advantage of this and talk about the need to take care of encryption with backdoors. We have enough problems with backdoors, and the fact is they got into his phone in just 40 minutes. Now, how did they do that? They didn't use domestic operations. They used a foreign intelligence company known as Cellebrite, which functions basically as a phone opener. Cellebrite is an Israeli company, well known in the world. Israel has a burgeoning mass surveillance industry, and I think there's a really big danger of employees being inserted to backdoor technology. I think the lucrativeness of this industry and the fact that Israel may not have as many natural resources as other places, so they are forced, for survival in a way, to capitalize on different types of technology. I don't necessarily agree with that. In fact, I absolutely don't. I don't agree with mass surveillance in any way. And Israel is well known as pretty much the premier spy for hire country. So it's well known agencies and units such as Unit 8200, and this kind of technology is used all the time, and it can be used to destroy democratic processes, where we see that journalists who go out and report on scandals end up being targeted and no longer have any right to privacy, as this channel is titled. So this veteran Al Jazeera Arabic journalist, Keda Uwais, can't pronounce it, obviously I don't speak Arabic, and basically her phone, this is just one of many instances, her phone was hacked and private photos of her in a swimsuit was leaked online. And we've seen a lot of this. We've seen a lot of intimidation tactics using this technology, and we can also take a look at some of the other articles, and Mint Press News covered Cellebrite as well. So Cellebrite, if you missed that, I mentioned that they got into the shooter's phone in just 40 minutes, and I'm glad they did. Obviously, I want to see, people who commit heinous acts brought to justice, and who wouldn't? But I think it's about the methods that matter, that we should be talking about. The methods that are the concern. The use of excuses. When you have a crisis, as Obama's former staff manager, Rami Emanuel, had said, never let a crisis go to waste. And we're seeing that right now. They're not letting this crisis go to waste. They're jumping right on it in order to bring encryption backdoors. So we've been seeing a lot of coverage. If you pay any attention to the news, it's a constant barrage of this encryption being the big problem. And so we can tell what's headed, what's coming, what's next, and what's being worked on behind the scenes. And I'm concerned that an event of this nature is such a huge one that it actually could lead to big tech firms providing law enforcement with a backdoor. That's a real concern because, without encryption in this day and age, you're not a free person at all. If you can't have secure encryption, you're under a form of totalitarianism. So encryption is vital to freedom in this day and age. All kinds of freedom. Freedom of speech, freedom of the press. You wouldn't have sources. You wouldn't have investigative journalism. You wouldn't have nearly anything except totalitarianism. Without encryption, that is all you're left with. So, of course, I'm highly against this, but what we do know is it really came down to total incompetence. And that needs to be said because they knew about this guy for 90 minutes before the event occurred. They also knew 20-something minutes beforehand that he was on the roof, 26 minutes if I recall, somewhere around there. So it was well known. People were shouting. They saw him. He was reported. Even the arms were reported. So we know that this was really the fault of incompetence. It had nothing to do with encryption. But of course, we're seeing all kinds of posts. People are talking about his skill level in technology and how that makes it a huge threat. And then, of course, I'm sure we're seeing others take advantage of this, and companies probably, some of those that are involved in the surveillance world that are totally jumping on this as an opportunity to get backdoors and encryption. And so I wanted to report on it. I wasn't sure if I was going to report on this stories or not. But I do think it's important, and we can see what's coming. Basically, just continually talking about this encryption. But let's be upfront and truthful about this. Would an encryption backdoor even help? If someone's technologically savvy, that will not help at all. You can backdoor Signal, you could backdoor all kinds, and I don't think Signal has a backdoor. I do not believe that. I don't report things unless there's proof, and while some people try to claim that, there's no reason to believe that there's any problem with that particular messenger. Now, on the other hand, when you look at the ownership of things like WhatsApp, there's more questions at play, but I would hope they wouldn't have a backdoor either. And when we talk about the reality of this situation is anyone who's technologically savvy can use something like PGP. So even if you backdoor the messengers, it doesn't solve this so-called issue, because someone can simply copy and paste PGP into whatever messenger it is, and there's no backdoor for that. All the code that's been released can be compiled by anyone and can be utilized by anyone. We also know that the Trump administration has come out supporting backdoors in encrypted messengers. So we do know that this is historically a Trump position, and that is another reason that I'm reporting on it, because I think it's pretty concerning, because obviously when someone goes under such a traumatic event like this, I don't know if they're going to be backing away from this position. And I think it's something we really should be paying attention to and listening for. And I'm paying close attention to all of these news stories to see what kind of proposals are being made. And we can go back and take a look at another article about their surveillance industry. We can also go and take a look at some of the reports that some believe Apple may have been helped with backdoors. I hope not. I really do. I really hope not. But like I said, I don't think it's far-fetched to believe that some of these specialized units may be inserting their employees into the supply chain. the industry. I think that's a real threat. I mean, it is a real threat. I don't know why I'm even saying I think it is, because it absolutely is. And I think there's so much money to be made that I think this is something, that should be looked at. Any companies that offer any kind of secure technology really need to be looking at the employees and their connections and their history, because this kind of thing is going to happen if it isn't already. I do have to wonder, how did they get into his phone in just 40 minutes? Was it good luck? Was it an easy password? I highly doubt that. It said that they could not themselves, the FBI could not get into his phone, but for some reason an Israeli company, Celebrate, was able to get into it in just 40 minutes. Does it use an undocumented vulnerability, an exploit? It's always possible. I'm not going to say it is. Maybe they just made some discoveries and just didn't report on them. Either way, 40 minutes is very quick for getting into an encrypted device. Very quick. And I think there should be more looks at how they exactly did that with the Celebrate tool. And we just need to be aware of this, that it's happening, that it's a real concern. We're seeing this technology being used against activists, those who are independent media. So if you do any kind of reporting, you may very well be a target, depending who you talk about. And that's something I'm very aware of. Sometimes people send me files, and, obviously I don't open them. But it's something you should be aware of. Obviously the most common way into someone's network and devices is through a malicious file download of some sort. And we've seen in past cases where there have been undocumented vulnerabilities, things like zero-click vulnerabilities for NSO groups Pegasus, where you don't even have to click on the message. Just part of the message previewing is actually vulnerable, has been vulnerable at least. And even phone calls, there have been vulnerabilities in the system. I do wonder if these are just simple coding mistakes or if there may be something more at play here. I think it's worth looking at because it seems, it seems to be a lot of this technology is centered in the Middle East. And the targeting of activist journalists, obviously, I definitely don't agree with that. Now we can take a look at Mint Press News and we can see an example of the tool that was used to extract this horrible person's phone. Because obviously they're a horrible person for doing this. This is just, nobody should, take... It's just insane to me that people do these crazy acts. And it's definitely not good for our privacy when things are used as propaganda to put backdoors in our system. And you can see the extraction summary. So, as mentioned, they used this Celebrate tool technology to get into the phone. And we can see what it's able to extract, all of these different types of extraction summaries and analysis here. You have chats, you have contacts, you have cookies, device locations. So there's a whole bunch of history here, multimedia messaging, recordings. This is just an example extraction. And you can see that a lot of data is there. There's a lot of ways they can get into various types of messaging. And with this combined with something like Pegasus, it's even more valuable. So just want to bring it up and talk about it because really what it comes down to, in the end, this entire thing is not the fault of encryption. This entire historic event is obviously the fault of total incompetence by the former, those who managed this operation with the Secret Service, because obviously that is the real issue here, is not encryption at all. Encryption is what brings freedom in the modern age. Without encryption, you have no privacy today. Without encryption, you have no guarantee of your rights. Without privacy, none of your rights can be guaranteed. And that's why it's so important that we protect encryption. And that's also why it's so important that we hold, officials accountable for wanting to target encryption and put backdoors in it. We can't let a crisis take away our good judgment. And that's what I want to report on today. Guys, make sure to share the video, like the video, leave a comment, let me know what you think. What do you think? Do you think there's going to be an attempt to backdoor encryption? Do you think this is going to be the big one, the big event that gets a successful backdoor? Or do you think there's already backdoors in most of our technology? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll be back later with more on how to protect your security and privacy.